Hello. Welcome to day 9. Day 9. Sorry, I wasn't here yesterday. There was too much noise with all the background, all the work they're doing right outside my window here. And it still might be a problem, but I'm gonna go forth. Hey Neil, good to see you. And Diana, hi there. Yeah, I have quite a bit of they're sawing pavers. They are sawing pavers. So let me know if it is, you can hear it and if it's disturbing to you. Okay. That'd be great. If you're going to be watching the replay, if you're here watching the replay, please say hi, hashtag replay. And uh, today I wanted to talk about the topic of guilt, the toxicity of guilt. I don't know too many believers who don't suffer from guilt. Um, all right, Diana, you hear it, but it's not distracting. Okay, cool. Okay, then I will carry on. But today we're talking about how guilt can get in the way of you receiving more love and you receiving more abundance. Hey, Kim, good to see you. All right. And the truth of the matter is, we don't want anything getting in the way of what God has for us, do we? Right? And I will say that I don't believe God would have us feel guilty. I don't want to say ever, but certainly not to stew in it, not to prolong it, not to have it be a continual way of life. Is this something that you guys, and if you're watching the replay, is this something that would be valuable to discuss? And like I said, I'm going to start the content about 5 after so that everybody can come in. Hey, Jen, good to see you. Yeah. Is guilt something that you you think can get in your way? All right? You think can get in your way. Hi, Christina. And while your exclamation point, Diana. Yes. Neil says yes, and I have reasons for agreeing with this. Okay. That would be interesting. Hello, honey. My hubby's here. Um, all right, somebody's texting me about trying to get in. Hmm. And you know what I'd like you to think about because guilt is a complex thing. It's a complex thing. And what makes it complex is that there are times when guilt is a interesting thing. Hang on a second. What's I just got a notice about my internet? Hmm. Uh okay. On okay. Somebody's trying to get on, but they can't find me. Yeah. Yeah. So guilt is kind of a complex issue. All right. And I'm not trying to advocate anybody being um, careless, reckless, irresponsible, uncaring, because the people I'm talking to, you guys, you are not that person. I say I froze for a little bit. All right, good. Yes, I've been having little internet problems this morning. All right, so hang on one second. Let me see if I can help this person out, okay? I'm not seeing me come up on my Facebook page. How did you guys find me? Hmm. Oh, here we are. Let me see if I can get her the link here. Gotcha. Here we go. Okay. All right. That's what I thought. For some reason, it wasn't showing up. So I found it and I sent it to her. So hopefully I can just carry on here. So I would like you to be thinking while we're waiting here. Let's see. We'll get started now. See the time. All right. I would like you guys to just put in the chat some questions you have about guilt. All right. Hey, Rose, glad you found us. What questions do you have about guilt? When I say, let's get rid of guilt, what comes to mind? What comes to mind? And, while you're thinking about that, I just wanted to say one more thing about shame. Um, Shame isn't necessarily that feeling that I'm not adequate to a task, all right? Because you might not be adequate to a task, but God is, all right? So there's no shame to not feel adequate to the task, right? As long as we know that we can go to God and we can solicit heavenly forces, angelic support, people, other people, we don't have to have all the answers and have all the power in and of ourselves. We don't have it. So it's okay to say, I'm inadequate to the task. I admit it, but I have a God. I have a God and I have resources and I have weapons and I have whatever it is I need to handle this will come to me. Okay. Um, and on the other hand, when we hear, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me, I used to take that to mean I should do all things. All things. I should do all things. And so I would try to go to the Lord and get some help. But if I was stressed out, burnt out, or whatever it is, and somehow I'm not appropriating God the way I should be. So therefore, shame on you, Marianne. All right. So not everything is our job. And there's one little story while you guys are just kind of processing here. Um, I remember if you're a mom, I think or you're in really close relationships where there's people depending on you. I remember when my son and his wife lost their car. They had two cars. They both died, and they just didn't have the resources to get another car. Now, they lived in Denver, Colorado. We lived in New York. And my mom self said, well, I hardly ever use my car. I should sell my car and give them the money, or I should drive my car from New York to Colorado so that they have a car. It's okay if I don't have a car, because I felt so bad for them. And I felt like, how moms are. You feel like you got to solve the problems and be the solution a lot of times. And you feel guilty if you don't. So while I'm processing all of this, I actually hear God say, don't be me. You don't have to be me. You're not God. I'm God. And I love them and I got this. And I'm like, oh, okay. I didn't do anything. So whatever guilt I felt, it just completely disappeared with the word from God. I felt this sense of assurance and security that God's going to take care of it. Well, lo and behold, somebody in their congregation wanted to give away their late model car. Their car was only a few years old, and they were looking for somebody, and somebody said, we know a young couple who could really use that car. They got this almost brand new car, fully loaded, way better shape than my car was. Okay? So, a word from God can sometimes take care of that. All right, so let me see what you have to say. I feel guilty when I see failure in launching or growth in investments when it appears to be my inaction. All right, so what you're saying is that you feel guilty when failure is a result of inaction. Is that right, Kim? All right, you feel guilty when failure seems to be a result of your inaction. So you feel guilty about not taking the action that you think you should, right? Okay. Jean says, does guilt relate to feeling badly? Yes, guilt can actually make us feel very badly. I think you and I were talking earlier, and you said it's a feeling of dis-ease. There's this feeling of dis-ease, right? Okay. Neil, don't be me. Don't be me. I like that. I'm not sure what you're referring to there. Okay. Rose says, I only feel guilty when I don't feel enough. When you don't feel enough. So when you're feeling enough, that means you're handling the situation, you're doing what it is you think you should be doing, you're on point. But if you're not, and you're not feeling enough, that means you must be dropping the ball in some way, or you're afraid you're going to drop the ball in some way. Is that what you're saying, Rose? Okay. So um, let me just say this. I totally believe with all my heart. Well, I was quoting God saying, don't be me, right? And that's a funny thing to say because God and we are one. We're inseparable. So, in some ways, we are like God. We are God, all right? We are love. He's love. And on the other hand, because God's not someplace out there that we have to go to Him, God is in here. God is already with us, right? Okay, so yes, and sometimes we are trying to be the God in people's lives, right? Um, if I get confusing, let me know. Ask me questions because, like I said, this is kind of a complicated subject. But the bottom line is going to be this. There's a passage in 1 John 4, and it says that perfect love casts out fear because fear has to do with punishment. What I want you guys to kind of get attuned to is that guilt carries a fear of punishment. Guilt carries a fear of punishment. Guilt is an emotion that it's fear that results in worry and anxiety. All right. And it has this fear of punishment. Now, the punishment could be you're going to miss out on a blessing. The punish could be that somebody's really mad at you. Sometimes people get so mad because of things we say or do that they alienate themselves from us. So we could feel fear abandonment. We can fear alienation, rejection. All right. Hi, Manuela. Nice to see you. Yes. So I think that guilt is that feeling of doing things wrong. I am afraid I did something wrong. I'm afraid I'm going to do something wrong. I'm afraid that the thing I did do wrong is going to result in negative consequences. There's going to be some kind of punishment to me, and nobody's going to sit us in a corner or they're going to give us a whipping, right? But there's other ways that we can feel punishment. So the word says perfect love, when we're in that state of feeling accepted and approved of and worthy and well cared for, perfect love casts out fear, and fear has to do with punishment. So whenever we feel guilty, we have this inner fear that somehow or another we're going to be punished, there's going to be negative consequences to us, and that's what we fear. All right. That's what we fear more than anything is the negative consequences. And like I said, it could be financial, it could be relational, it could be any number of things, any number of ways. And that's why guilt is an amazing motivator. When people guilt trip you and they can have a problem and then somehow or another they turn it around that it's your fault that they have the problem, it can go straight to your heart. You might not even be able to think very clearly because of it, right? It can trigger guilt, especially if you're prone to guilt. All right, hang on a second. Let me just look and see here. In a family with a rageaholic father and brilliant but emotionally distant mom, all exacerbated by alcohol, I was not as good a big brother as I should have been. So, is that something that you've resolved, Neil? Do you remember how that felt? Do you still carry around that feeling like I should have been better? I should have been better. And that's another thing about guilt. Guilt has the I should be better. I should know better. I should have done better. All right. I'm going to give you some solutions to this, but right now I just want to draw it out. Okay? Diana, I feel guilty when I make stupid mistakes and others get hurt, even when it's a common mistake that anyone can make. So that gets back to when you're talking about you probably beat yourself up. You badger yourself about that, right? And that just increases your sense of shame and guilt, right? Okay. And I want to talk about that kind of scenario to Diana. So, and if I don't, remind me because it's a very common one and I think I have an answer for it. All right. I feel guilty when I'm being dishonest. All right, now then we can say, all right, isn't that a good thing to feel guilty when you are being dishonest? Yeah, sure. All right. It's what happens after that. All right, if guilt is just that thing that pricks your conscience and makes you aware that you've done something that is out of integrity, misaligned, hurt somebody, right? And guilt is that little something that makes you aware of it, then guilt is not a bad thing. But what happens after that? All right, that's when it can become toxic. All right, you got that right. Fear is a big thing. I try to change fear into faith. Yes, and you know that's a tricky thing, Manuela, to change fear into faith. Okay, because a lot of times we don't we don't know what to change it into. Faith for what? You know, faith for what? Neil, yes, I can't go back and change my behavior at that time in my life. No, you can't. But if you're still carrying it around somehow, if there's, let's talk about feeling guilty about something that was done a long time ago that you can't change today. All right. Or maybe it was something that you did, you hurt somebody in such a way and they're not around for you to rectify it. And even if they were around to rectify it, they might not be able to receive it. So now you're carrying around this load of guilt. Yeah, this like slimy, muddy morass of that, right? What do you do with it? What do you do with it? Do you just kind of haul it around wherever you go? I want you to think about that. Really, do you haul it around? It's weight. That is weight, right? So for me, one of the things that I am so grateful for is that when Jesus died on the cross, he died for all sin, all mistakes, all errors, past, present, and future, right? And I'm of the firm belief that we do not have to ask for forgiveness. We've already been forgiven. All right, we've already been forgiven. So instead of asking forgiveness, when I become aware that I've done something wrong and maybe I can't even do anything about it anymore, I say, thank you for dying for that one too. Thank you for dying for that one too. Thank you for letting me off the hook. Thank you that I don't have to pay for that. But if anybody is hurt because of it, I ask you to work in their life in ways that I can't. Love on them, fill in whatever deficit, bring them to whatever awareness, whatever they need in order for them to not miss out on the love and the abundance and the purpose and the meaning that they are meant to live. I ask that you work in their life. Does that make sense? Okay. So sometimes when we say, I can't go back and change that, right? I can't go back and change that. I wish I could, but I can't. We still don't want to carry it around with it as a weight and that I should have and I didn't and now I'm just holding the bag. All right, does that make sense to you guys? Okay. Christina says, I feel guilty. I can't do enough, be good enough, get done what I should within the medical constraints I have. Like I should be able to figure it out. Yeah. So obviously there's that word again. Whenever we apply the should thing to our lives, and you're in a situation where um, it's you could say instead of I should, I would like to, and I would love to be healed. I'm going to stand on my healing, but in the meantime, I am going to accept and be grateful for where I am right now, right? But let me ask you, Christina, does that guilt that you can't do enough, does it improve your life? Does it make you lighter? Does it make you more joyful? Does it give you more energy? Tell me exactly, what does that guilt you're carrying around that you can't do enough for whatever reason? What does that guilt do for you? Okay, Manuel, you were saying that you have faith for what we have no control of and leaving it up to God. Faith that God is going to fix it, right? Can we not count on God to work on our behalf, to fix things for us, to fix our mistakes? Isn't that what redemption is about? I was talking to one of my clients about this, and I didn't realize, as a very strong Christian, she didn't understand what redemption is. Redemption, just to be clear here, is God taking a negative situation and turning it into a positive. That's all. God taking a negative situation, something bad that we did, and turning it into something good, right? Now, the fact that we did something bad, does that mean because God can fix it all, we're going to become willy nilly and not care about whether we do things wrong or who we hurt or anything like that? Well, are you those kind of people? No, you are not. So don't even go there. You're not psychopaths, right? Kim says, how does sowing and reaping fit into this? That's why I feel guilty because I'm sowing what I'm reaping, and that seems to make me freeze. Okay, that's a really great question. Okay, naturally, in the kingdom and in life and nature, you sow what you reap, right? You made this mistake, and there's a saying, you made your bed, now you lie in it, right? You did this, you got to suffer the consequences. All right. That is a very worldly way of thinking. Even sowing and reaping, it's a kingdom principle, but it can be turned into a worldly way of thinking because there is a higher principle than sowing and reaping. And that higher principle is mercy. Mercy. That's right. Okay. Because we don't always know what we're sowing to reap what we reap, right? We don't always know. That means that we know perfectly if we're going to be held accountable all the time for this and we're going to get punished, and that's part of the harvest is the reaping is the punishment, right? Then that means we have to know all the time perfectly what we should be sowing, how we should be behaving, what we should be doing. Is that the kind of God we have? And if it is the kind of God we have, then that is the God of, that's the law God. That's the law God. Okay? That kind of God is going to, if that's what you believe, that's the God that you have, rather the God of redemption and mercy and restoration, all right, then you're going to have to be very, very careful what you did. Because remember, Jesus said, you violate one law and you have to, if you want to achieve one law, you're going to have to achieve them all. Okay? But the greatest commandment is love, and mercy triumphs over judgment. Does that make any sense, Kim? Does that help at all? All right. When I was, when I had my first encounter with the Lord, and I was an atheist, and I was feeling a bit depressed because I had this great job. I was prosecuting attorney. Life was good. I had money. I had status. I had a great apartment and friends and parties and status, all of that. And but there was something still kind of missing, right? Never in my wildest dreams ever thought it would be God because I was an atheist. God was not a solution. God was not an answer because I thought of God as a God who wanted things from me, who demanded things of me, who was there to cramp my style. All right. And so for 10 years, I was an atheist. Well, then I went and had this. I went to this church with my sister because she saw I was kind of depressed and, nothing suicidal, nothing that major. But when I was in this church, and I won't tell you the circumstances, but the encounter I had with God was God as love. Nothing else but love. Nothing else but love. I think sometimes in our believing circles, in our churches, in our teachings, we contaminate the pure love of God with all this other stuff. And we get far away from the pure essence of God as love. So that day, I experienced God as love. God didn't care that I was an atheist. He didn't care that I denounced him 10 years prior. No, he never left me. I didn't know he was there. But one day, my awareness came in line with who he was as love, and my whole body from top to bottom, inside out, was filled with this electrical energy. That's what love felt like. So much electricity, so much love, so much this feeling like as light as a feather that I was the most special, most wonderful person on earth. That was God. That's what filled me with courage. Eventually, I quit my wonderful job to pursue something else that was riskier, that wasn't as much money. But eventually, that feeling of love and being cared for, that while I was nurturing that, led me to places, as you've heard me say this before, but Newport Beach, California, ocean view office space, and my hubby, the love of my life, right? So while I was floating in all of that, and I really didn't go to church. I had a couple experiences in church after that love experience, which was really not a good experience. So I stopped, I didn't go to church. But eventually, after Gene became a Christian and he and I started going to church, and I wanted to just know, how do I be good? How do I be a good representation of the Lord? How do I live a life that's beyond reproach? Because those are the teachings that we were involved in back then. And so I we we got to the point where we were, oh gosh, we were like either preparing for ministry, somehow or another we got picked for ministry right away in this one church we went to. They just earmarked us as leaders in the church and people that were going to be involved in this, involved in that. And gosh, I was honored. I was honored. But that feeling honored turned into oppression. And my phone would ring off the hook with people calling me about their problems. And we were teaching and we were ministering or preparing for ministry 6 days a week. And I tell you, I was starting to burn out because I had this belief. I had this belief that the way to avoid burnout was to go before the Lord every day. Go before the Lord every day. Here I am. Show me my sin. Show me my sin. Show me my sin. I don't want any sin to get in the way of my service to you, Lord. I don't want any sin to be. And I just was like, oh my gosh. I felt like Martin Luther, who was beating himself with the flogs every day just to make sure. And for preventative measure, here's another couple of uh, hits, right? Yeah. Well, I burned out anyway. And I was so angry because I thought God had let me down. What more did you want from me? I went to you every day. I'm doing your work. I'm ministering to people. I'm making a difference. I come before you. I lay everything at your feet. What more do you want from me? Whenever we have the thought, if you ever hear the thought, what more do you want from me, Lord? You got the wrong idea of who He is, and your relationship needs a little tweaking. All right? Just saying. Well, it was such a burden for me, and I didn't know how to extract myself from this community and not be um, the bad guy and abandoning people and being irresponsible, that I actually kind of made us move up into the mountains. I moved us up into the mountains, bought a house up there, way away from everybody else. Had a hard time even going to church anywhere. And then we had a revelation. I had a revelation where the Lord said to me, I never asked you to do all that. I never asked you to do all that. I don't want you focusing on sin. I settled that a long time ago. That is not even an issue. I don't want you thinking of yourself as sinful. I don't want you thinking of yourself as a sinner. I want you thinking of yourself as perfect. I want you focusing on your perfection. Whoa. Well, that was a paradigm shift. But as I focused on my perfection and the finished work that he's done, I started to feel lighter. I started to feel happier. Joy came back into my life. So there was a pastor that we were friends with, and Gene happened to be, as he always was, on the board. All right. Uh, and this is up in our new place we're living. And I got used to the feeling of people being disappointed in me. One of the most awful things in my mind was disappointing people or people being disappointed in me. So I had to keep all these balls in the air all the time and help everybody all the time because I hated the idea of them thinking I've let them down in some way, right? Well, I couldn't do it any other way. And Gene was on the board of this church, and I wasn't even going. And sometimes they would say to him, where's your wife? That would have killed me before. But now is at a point like, I don't care. Let them think it. For 30 something years, I had tried to avoid that feeling. And now I'm like embracing it. You know why? Because I'm perfect in Christ. I'm perfect. I'm perfect in his eyes. So they could be mad at me. They can be disappointed in me, but I'm perfect in his eyes. So I started talking to the pastor about this. And I had the Bible verses, I had all the theological proof. And he was like, wow, that's amazing. Well, he was going to be going on the trip for 6 weeks. 6 weeks he was going to on vacation. And he asked me, would you lead my Bible study, my weekly Bible study? Now, again, I'm not the person who was going to church all the time, right? I rarely went, but he loved this message and he asked me if I would teach it to his people. So he told everybody, you're going to Marion and Jean's house. Marion is going to be leading the Bible study, which was an amazing thing, anyways, because here I'm a woman being leading all these people in this Bible study. So they all came, and I was so excited to be teaching this good news. This is good news. We don't have to think about our sin. We just have to think about our perfection. Because when you think about your sin too much, you start to sin more, number one. But number two, you feel undeserving of blessings. That's the problem with guilt. All right. Guilt carries punishment, this idea of punishment. It is hard for you to feel like you are deserving of what God has for you, of the blessings, about the abundance and the love, if you feel guilty and deserving of punishment. They don't go together. All right. They're almost mutually exclusive. So I started to teach the group. And after that first session, that first meeting, they never came back. Nobody came back. Week after week after week, nobody came back. So I talked to the pastor about it when he came back, and he had already heard. He had already heard that I'm teaching something heretical. I'm teaching something heretical. And then he says to me, I should have known they weren't ready for that. I'm so sorry. I should have known they're not ready for that. I mean, I thoroughly believe in grace. I thoroughly believe in mercy and redemption. But if I don't throw some law in there, I don't know what they're going to end up doing. And I have heard that over and over and over again by a number of religious leaders. Yes. So that's partly why we have this problem with guilt. That's partly why, right? Okay. I got to take a breath a minute. I get really jacked up about this stuff, as you can see. Comments. Comments, anyone? I know you might be going, Now, what I could be saying is like old news. You know it, you don't need it. Or You could be going, I kind of thought that. I kind of thought that. Or you can say, nope, not for me. All right. You got to do your own study on this, right? You don't have to take my word for it. But I think that when you focus on your perfection and your worth, it's the beginning of true freedom. Okay. So, so wonderful. I know it and keep forgetting it. Well, good. Here's a good reminder. We do forget. We do forget. And that's because we live in a world where people like to throw guilt on each other, right? If I'm in pain, then it can't be me, right? So it's got to be something you're doing to me. Or it's always me. I'm one of those people that if I'm in pain and you're in pain, it's got to be me. I'm always the problem, right? That has basically been where I was for many, many years. It's got to be me. It's got to be something I'm doing. It's got to be something that I can fix, that I have to fix, that I should fix, right? Neil says the audio video is not in sync. Oh, I'm sorry about that. Hmm. My internet has been weird today. I have to say, it's been weird today. Could be why. You go ahead and close your eyes, Neil. Float along. Float along. You see, when we know God's love, when we know love and we know the bigness of it, the depth of it, we know the power of it, right? We can actually first apply the love to ourselves. Get that mercy. Feel that mercy. Feel that feeling that, you know what? Maybe I shouldn't have done that. Or I know I shouldn't have done that. Here's another example. You guys have talked about my meltdown, my money meltdown, right? Part of what caused the meltdown was this feeling, I felt guilty. I felt guilty because, and I didn't really consciously know I was feeling guilty. It was more like this feeling like, here we are with only $600 in the bank, and we had so much money in the beginning of the year, and it's all gone now. And I felt guilty about the choices that we had made, that I had made. Now, I could justify it all and say, well, we had to spend it on this and we had to spend it on that. And then this came up and then there was that. But there were other things. There were other things I spent it on. Like we lived in a resort style community. Somebody said, you are living way too lavishly. So I kind of felt guilty that we were living in so much abundance. I got a new car. Well, did you need to spend all that money to get a new car? Right? I think about all the ways that I spent money that when I'm there on the threshold of almost poverty, and I saw everything that I spent money on that was frivolous came flooding forward, and it made me feel guilty. Now, a mother would say, well, you should have known better, right? Now look at the position you're in, and blah, 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 right? But I don't have a God that does that. When I'm feeling guilt and anger at myself for how I frittered money away, right? God's response was not, you should have known better. You should have known better. No, his response was, get back to love, Marianne. Get back to love. And then he flooded my mind with all kinds of times when he came forward and lavished love, lavished finances, lavished, overrode governmental systems, gone beyond, way beyond what I could even imagine as far as opportunity and resources. And you forget those things when guilt is on your mind and you feel ashamed for what you've done, you feel guilty about what you've done. That's what you're looking at. And it's like looking through glasses with mud on them. Okay? Looking with glasses with mud on them. Can't see clearly. So God just takes a little wipers, get back to love. And love is mercy. Love is redemption. Love is restoration. Love is I got this for you and I want you to live lavishly. I want you to live in abundance. I want you to feel free. Here, let me help you. Get out of the pit of shame and guilt. Yeah. And now I want you to focus on all the times I've been way, way good to you because that's who I am, right? Okay. Manuel, I'm thinking here, I'm not perfect as God wants me to be. However, I'm thankful I'm good enough in God's eyes. Yes, yes, yes. You are thankful. I mean, I'm glad you're thankful and you are good enough in God's eyes. But in God's eyes, I would dare say, and I would love you to just process a little bit. You may not do everything just right. We're not expected to, by the way, but you are in your core identity, who you are perfect. I said the other day that we are God's crowning achievement of all his creative power. He doesn't make anything defective or with flaws. He doesn't. He said to me the other day, why would I do that? Why would I purposely make flawed individuals? I'm the master creator. I only make masterpieces. Okay? If we start focusing on that right now and just flowing in that, being grateful about rather than being so self conscious about everything we're doing, will we not do better work in the world? Will we just not naturally flow in more love? Hmm? My son is learning this right now. Very good, Christina. You had things to pass on to him too, didn't you? Yes. Flee to love. Is that what you said, Jean? Flee? Oh, no, wait a minute. Yes. Flee to love. That's good. That's good. Christ in you, our hope of glory. Our hope of glory. Now, an empowered way to be is to always know that you have choices. You always have choices. You're a person of choice. You're a person who gets to choose. You get to choose. And so, sometimes we choose. I remember one time I was I was doing something very unusual. I made a decision to take care of myself, to not take on a certain obligation. And because I didn't take on the obligation, someone else I know felt like they had to. All right. Now they didn't have to, but because they felt like they had to, they got mad at me because I did not take on the obligation. They got really mad at me. They got so mad at me they wouldn't even talk to me for a while. So your choices can actually make somebody else upset if they don't have the ability themselves to say no or to choose otherwise. Okay, they can feel like your decision is forcing them to have to bear the burden. And a lot of times that's just not true. They have the choice too, but they don't feel like they have the choice, so they get angry with you for putting them in that position. Does anybody know what I'm talking about there? I mean, not the specific situation, but have been in that situation. Yes. Awesome. Awesome, Manuela. Okay. I don't want to get into too much more depth here. I just want to kind of like I just wanted to start, opening things up a little bit, opening up a discussion here, you know, and I want to leave you with some things to actually think about and do. All right. Hey, Evelyn, it's good to see you. And Joseph, hi. I don't think I've seen you on here before. It's nice to see you too. Um, One of the very first lives, the broadcast I did, I told you that there are simple ways that you can start to increase that sense of feeling loved, right? And I want you to keep practicing that. I haven't talked about this in a few days, but I want you to keep practicing that. And that is you step outside, you see the sun, and you say, thank you for shining for me today. A bird sings, thank you for singing that song to me today. Personalize it. Personalize what's happening. Somebody smiles at you. Somebody opens the door for you. Start personalizing. Don't just kind of like pass over these things. Take notice of all the little ways where love is in the world. Okay? All the little ways. You can start to open up your whole mind and your senses to how love is everywhere, everywhere, right? The other thing, though, has to do with this guilt, the feeling of guilt, and becoming more aware of when you are feeling guilty. And as the week goes on, if you want to come and bring those to the group, and we can talk about that a little bit, using some of these examples, right? Be aware of the guilt and journal about it. I feel guilty because I'm afraid that this is going to happen. I'm afraid that if I don't fix it or if I don't go to that person, this is going to happen. Um, Journal. Just start to become aware where you're feeling guilty and how it's making you feel. All right. But a third thing is, as soon as you really do something wrong, you really do, you have to, you have to acknowledge that. And you have to go to the Lord and you say, thank you. Thank you for taking that one too. Thank you for dying for that one too. Oh, thank you. I don't have to carry that around with me. Thank you that you can fix the situation. Thank you that I don't have to live with the consequences of that, that you can restore it, that you can redeem it. Thank you. So get out of guilt and into gratitude. Get out of guilt and into gratitude. All right? The more you beat yourself up about something is not going to it's not going to be your guard. It's not going to make you do any better in life. We've talked about that already. Okay? Soon as you can, recognize the guilty feelings, get out of guilt, and get into gratitude. And then be led. If God has got a solution or you've got to do something to rectify it with somebody, then listen to his voice and go do it in his power, in his resources, in his strength. Okay? This is such a huge way that we can alleviate the guilt that's in our life. Yeah, which is very weighty. Aw, I'm sorry, Kim. All these sessions make me realize I feel like a little orphan or an unwanted stepchild. Hmm. Well, hang on to that thought. I mean, really, I don't want you to hang on to that thought. I don't want you to go around feeling like an orphan or unwanted stepchild. The truth of the matter is, you're not, and I know what you're saying is that you feel like one. You feel like one. So if you feel like one, it's because you're thinking you are one. It's because you believe somehow. Because remember, our beliefs, the conclusions we think and feel about ourselves, affect our thoughts, which affect our feelings, which affect the actions we take, and which affect the results we get in life. Remember that beliefs, thoughts, feelings, actions, results, right? So if you have this feeling of being an orphan, it's because you have some belief that you are one. That's where you do the business. Are you an orphan or is that a lie? Are you truly unwanted or is that a lie? A few days ago, we talked about acknowledging the lie And a lie is a belief that is not coherent, it's not consistent, it's not aligned with God's truth, right? It's God's truth. So call it a lie. It is a lie that I'm an orphan. It's a lie that I'm an unwanted stepchild. It's a lie. And I acknowledge that today. And then what do? You kiss the lie goodbye. Remember? You kiss the lie goodbye, right? For some reason, your brain thought that you needed to come up with that to protect you in some way. So maybe you don't have any expectations of love, so you're not disappointed. There's all kinds of reasons our brain does this. But you kiss the lie goodbye, and then you embrace the truth. I am dearly loved. I have favor with God. I am special in His eyes. He takes really good care of me, right? And you could come up with a whole 2 or 3 pages of declarations of truth. You know what they are. And let that settle in. And you start operating from that place. You start even coming up with evidence of all the times when you felt cherished, when special things were done for you, where you were taken care of, right? Mm, that's right, Manuela. Thank you for putting that down. You are feeling this is bringing you freedom. Awesome. I didn't know I was stuck in judgment. Yeah, most of the time we don't. It's like it's always there. But now this is dislodging it, isn't it? Isn't that awesome? We're unmasking these things. We're stripping them of its power, right? These have been jailers. Guilt and shame have been our jailers, right? We're not supposed to be in jail. The door has been flung wide open. We are free to go. Okay. All right, guys. Thank you for being here. Anybody have any more questions about any of this, then put them in the comments. You can also Facebook message me, and I will do my best to address them here in the group. Okay? All right. Hey, Misty, have you been on? Thank you. I give myself permission to be blessed. Amen and hallelujah, brother. All right, guys, I appreciate you. And if you're watching the replay, thank you for showing up. I appreciate you too. Let me know how these are affecting you. Anything getting dislodged, anything shifting, love to hear about it. All right, blessings. Bye bye.